Sabfoil W940 surf wing. Hi everyone, welcome to the stream. Hope everybody can hear me. It looks like I have sound. Cool, already 16 people here, and I see the questions are rolling in. It's great. So I hope everyone can actually hear me now. So if you can't hear me or there are any issues, just type that in the text. I can see the chat going on. So okay, so I'm glad most of you liked the video, and I will just get straight into the questions now, I guess. Actually, before I start, just let me explain the whole live stream bit. You might notice it's gone a bit differently. I've read up a little bit more on the whole live stream thing, and I'm using Streamlabs now, so yeah, you can see all the new things here. We've got the Discord channel up here. If you are on Discord, you can just join the Discord channel there, and you can always reach me anytime, really, if you have any questions. Also on the Buy Me, there's a special Buy Me Coffee channel that I have for members, where you can reach me pretty much all the time. Thanks for that. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, you can also go in the link down below. There is to the page from Streamlabs to my tip page if you're interested in just basically donating and helping out with the channel. And also there's a bunch of cool, like, simple t-shirts I've sort of made up, any merch and so on that you like. So any support is really cool. So let's get to the first question from Mark Stoffel. Why to buy the 940 for winging in small to mid waves if you already own the 1000 or the 799? Think there's too much overlap. Not quite. With the 799, there's definitely no overlap with this. There's quite a size difference, and the low end of the 799 and the speed, there's quite a difference between those two. So there's not as big an overlap there. Now with the 1000, this is why it took so long for me to make the review. I really needed to get the differences out of both wings, because both the 1000 and the 940 are very, very similar. It's a thing, like, personally I prefer faster and aggressive riding, so I prefer the 1000. However, there are certain conditions where the 940 is just a bit easier to deal with. Like in the video, as you saw, those conditions were pretty messy, a lot of current and a lot of people around, and the wind actually wasn't so consistent. It was super strong, but with a lot of lulls. The direction was actually cross off. So on that session, I decided to take the 940 instead, because it just gave me a little bit more low end, and it's a little bit less susceptible to turbulence than the 1000. Whereas the 1000 is a lot faster and a lot more agile, but it also takes a more careful rider to ride it well. You need to spend a few weeks to get used to that style of riding to get the most out of it, whereas the 940 feels at home almost instantly. And on the low end wise, at least for me, it gives me maybe 1 or 2 knots more in sort of the mid range, where it's just easier to start. But it really likes to be powered too. It takes a lot of pumping and a lot of speed to get it to fly and to be effective. Once it's up and on the wave, it's like the 1000. It glides pretty good if you have some power behind it. And it really likes actually having being in a wave, having that wave power. So if you already own the 1000 and the 799, it depends. If you're feeling that the 1000 is just not quite doing it for you, you're not using it to its full potential, you're not really riding aggressively top to bottom, and you're wanting that speed, and you're looking for something just a little bit more easier, a little bit larger turns, but still quite as agile, then the 940 is for you. But otherwise, there is quite an overlap with the 1000. Okay, Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I really liked doing that interview with Robert. It was super fun to talk shop with like another shop owner, another sort of person in the business. So we're looking forward to doing that again sometime soon. All right, Neil. Neil is asking. Neil has a 1100 and a 790. What would be the next wing for more speed in flat water? Okay, I mean, if you want to keep the 790, then yeah, it's either 1000 or 800 even. And yeah, I mean, the 940 is also pretty fast. But if you want the maximum speed, and you're trying to step down, like if you're going in stronger wind than you're using the 790, then that would be the 800 actually, because the 1000 is very close in low end to the 790 for a normal weighted person. So with a little bit more skill, you can make the 1000 work in the same low end wind range as the 790, and it's pretty much got an infinite speed range at the top end. I don't think I've ever reached the maximum speed where I felt uncomfortable. It's just I've reached an end of what the wings I've had in my hand can do. Okay. So far, no other questions on the chat. So let me answer some of the other questions that have been asked in the comments of the other video. So some of the questions have been asking about the new HS durability test, the new HS 700 fuselage. This is where, well, Euron. Okay, another question from Euron. I'll answer that one after I finish this. The 700 is a bit more beefy than the 710, 1 centimeter shorter. But the biggest difference, besides having the M8 hardware for the front screws, is the fact that the mast is positioned about 3 centimeters farther towards the wing. So what does that do? That makes the wing just a little bit more, let's call it surfy or aggressive. As the front wing no longer has as much leverage against the mast, so that has less leverage against your front foot, you can push it down easier. So that when you get on a wave and you're carving, when you're using your front foot to pressure the board around, it's easier. It resists that less. That is the con, the pro. The con is that if you're a bit heavy-footed, if you're used to like 1100 on the 710, and you overpressure your front foot, you can overpressure the front wing a lot. So you will feel that there is less front foot pressure. And on a setup point, you need to move the mast forward to have the same pressure point compared to when you're using the 710 fuselage. If you want to use your normal wings and you don't want to drill open your older wings, you get supplied these new washer inserts, essentially, for the older wings, and you can use M6 screws through the larger holes on the new wings. Okay, next question. Also, Euron, you were asking, you mentioned in the review that you need some more decent speed. How do you see this wing on slower waves? Once you get on the wave, it's fine. As long as you're flying, it doesn't take much power from the wave to keep the 940 going. It only needs that speed to get the flow attaching to the wing to get up and flying, but once you're up, it's quite easy to keep it flying with very little wave behind you. It just it doesn't do like the 1000, where the 1000 will just, even on a small wave, just accelerate down past the wave, forcing you to turn back in. This stays a bit more on the wave. The cool thing about that is usually when for example on the 950 and the 1100, if the foil is staying in the wave, as the wave gets bigger and it speeds up a bit more, you get overpowered more easily. And with the 940, because it's a bit smaller and also the profile is matched a bit more for wave riding, it doesn't overpower your foot as much, and it's much easier just to ride through even a bigger wave on it. Christian is asking, versus the 950. It's not really easy or fair to compare the 940 to the 950. They are completely different concepts of wing. The The 950 basically is a smaller 1100 with winglets. It has a very low stall speed. It pumps okay. It works very well on flat water. It's a good freestyle wing. It's okay on waves, but not brilliant. Now the 940 is, first of all, a lot smaller, so it takes more wind to get going. It has, let's call it, like a little bit more linear acceleration to it, which works a little bit better in the waves, so it doesn't tend to shoot up on you. And the best part on the 940 is the fact that it has rounded tips and a little bit of washout or upturn. I'm trying to get it on the camera on the tip. It allows you to breach the tip, so carve hard, and it won't ventilate. Whereas the 950, if you breach it, it will ventilate, and you need a lot of more skill to recover this. Whereas the 940 is very easy to recover from a breach. All right, Nick is asking. Nick is 100 kilos, prone foiling with a Nash 1240 HA. And everything from micro to shoulder. The 940 would be less area, same span, more efficient, more speed. Does that track? Yes. Especially compared to the Nash. I mean, it's smaller in surface area, yes. However, it has a little bit more powerful profile, so it'll match up a little bit more on like how it gets up. I would say the 940, however, doesn't quite pump as well as the Nash. So when you kick out of the wave, it takes a little bit more effort to keep the pump going. That's something more that the 945 will do, according to Moses, compared to the 940. The 940 is more of a larger wave, straight down the line, top to bottom surfing foil, where pumping is not as important, and the 945 will be the more pumping thing. So the 945 will actually be closer to compare to the Nash HA. In a direct comparison with the Nash and the 940, yes, the 940 will feel more efficient through the water, more slippery. It will turn a lot faster, but that's mainly down to, I ride it with this small stabilizer with the 370, so I've got the maximum turnability. But again, the fuselage is also a bit shorter than on the Nash, so yeah, it's going to be more agile and a bit turny. All right, loose ride Conrado Romano. Do you think it's suitable for flat water pumping and dock starting? Nope. The 940 is definitely not great for dock starting and pumping. It's not made for that, and it takes a lot of energy to pump it. If you're looking for something better for that, like I said, the 945 sounds like the right one. And if it has to be Moses at the moment, yeah, definitely have a look at the new 1250. The 1250 is huge. It's the biggest one that Moses do, and that is more useful for dock starting and flat water pumping. Okay. All right. So I was talking about the fuselage before. Oh yeah, somebody asked. Yes, the fuselage uses the same connection as the surf foils for the same connection as the 710. So you can use any of the masts, the old Kite mast, the old surf mast, and the new surf masts too. So the 945 is shaped a bit different to the 940 then. Yes, it is. It's different profile, slightly different shape. I mean, the profile is what really makes a difference for pumping, really. So as I was saying, you can use any of the masts. I preferred for most freestyling and wave riding, I prefer to use the 92 at the moment. It just gives me a bit of clearance and allows me to lean, heel the board over a bit more and carve more aggressively. Jordy, hype Jordy. For downwind winging, the W1000 is the best option. Yes, for strong wind, definitely the 1000 is the option. It's very fast and very efficient. So once you get up on the foil, and you have any bit of wind behind you, that's called normal downwind conditions, so 25-30 knots plus, the 1000 will pretty much stay up indefinitely. That said, you need to employ a bit more skill to use the 1000, especially in lighter downwind conditions, because you need to stay on the waves a bit more, whereas the 1000 will try to run. It will try to overtake the waves in front of you. Once you get the practice of it, you can really nicely turn and carve, and you can play on the downwinder. But however, if you're wanting a bit more relaxed downwinder, a bit slower, sort of a foil that sticks more in the wave so you can just stand and relax, then the 940 is actually better for that. If you're going to downwind, I would actually then use the 400 stabilizer on that. It's just a little bit more relaxed and will allow you to save a bit more energy. And let's talk a bit about the 370. I mean, this is the standard back wing that's being sort of sold with the kit with the 940. And if you can see, this is pretty small. This is a very thin stabilizer. No curve to it, no winglets. This makes it very, very loose. Not everyone likes that. I love it. It's actually because it's not unstable. It's just loose. So when you get on there, it really allows the foil to take your inputs and change them into a turn very quickly without any resistance. So when you first start riding it, you will notice that it will punish anything you do wrong. If you step slightly off to the side of your rail and you're not quite centered and you make a mistake, it will react. It's not an unstable reaction, it will just turn more quickly. So in jibes, tacks, and so on, you just have to be a bit more perfect on there. But however, what it allows you to do is when you're trying to carve it, you can bottom turn and slam that thing around, and it just does exactly what you want it to do. Very much a shortboard type of foil. Another good thing about the very sort of small span on this is that I'm actually just going to turn off the blur on this. I hope it doesn't kill the video. I'll turn off the background blur. All right. So the background blur, it's easier to see everything. So the small span on this, when you breach, when you're carving, and you have a bit of air sort of coming off the front wing, it doesn't impact the back wing as much. It doesn't impact the stabilizer, which prevents any ventilation getting caught here and spinning you out. And that's really cool about having a flat, very sort of small stabilizer. That said, it's actually still a very powerful stabilizer, so pitch stability is still very, very good for a stabilizer of this size. As you notice, it's smaller than sort of the race and kite stabilizers, but it's designed to be put on the surf fuselage. Another thing about the 700 is it's a bit more compatible between the surf and the kite fuselages now. So when you put stabilizers. So when you put a kite stabilizer on this, it fits a lot better without a shim than the surf stabilizers used to. Okay. Oh yeah, another question I got asked on the Discord server before was about the screws on the stabilizer. The stabilizer screws are still M6. Bernhard is asking, does the 370 work with the 950 and the 799 difference compared to the 399? Yes, it does. Now, the main difference is the 399 is a lot more stable and less agile. It's when you for example you ride the 940 and you change over to the 399 or the 400, it all feels a little bit more tuned down. It is a bit more sort of slow to react to your turns. It sort of softens it up. So essentially, car analogy here. This is sort of like sports suspension. Everything's very direct. And the 399 softened it up, so sort of like still like a sports car, but softened up a bit for normal person everyday use. And then if you put, for example, the 384 on here, it rides extremely stable, too stable for my opinion. But if you're looking for something still quite agile but very stable, then you can use the 483 also. Right, Nick, thanks for the great response. You're welcome. Yeah, like I said, Mark, yeah, the 370 versus the 400, it's quite a noticeable difference. Yes, Kevin, Sabfoils are made in Italy. Okay. Oh yeah, I got asked also about the M8 hardware. I'm not 100% sure. I've not actually received any of the new wings for the shop yet with hardware. The ones that Jimmy sent to me with the 940 are not Torx. They are normal Allen key. So I'm not sure if maybe the new ones come with Torx. If they don't, it actually makes sense because you can use the actual Torx key for the M6 screws on the M8 Allen connection, which is about 5 millimeters also, and it still works. It's not the best tool to use for that, but hey, but definitely also the better tool to use is the actual fuselage mast screw to there, so you don't have to have an extra Torx 40 to screw the hardware on. So I would assume they're gonna always deliver it with Allen key hardware instead of Torx. Personally, I prefer Torx because it's almost impossible to destroy the hole with the Torx. But I mean, this works pretty good too. Okay. Our stock is asking, is the 370 smaller? Is the 370 the smaller 483, or are they different? They are very different. The 483, I just don't have one lying around at the moment, has a completely different profile, different outline. The 483 actually has a bit of downturn, more of a gull wing shape. So you have very, very different style of back wing. Benhard's asking, low end is the same with the 370. It's slightly less, as it always with a smaller stabilizer. You can push that low end up again if you shim it up a little bit. Speed is faster with this compared to most things. I would say 399 versus the 370. 370 is slightly faster, but the 370 is slightly more unstable at higher speeds. Okay, Neil's asking a good question. So basically, when do you need the stabilizer shim with this setup? I mean, Moses tried to explain it pretty well. I prefer, obviously, to use all my foils without any extra shims. I prefer not to add any drag to the back. Now, the reason you would use shim on this, if it wasn't for adding more stability or slowing it down, would be if your tracks aren't far enough forward. If you had a board where the tracks are so far back that you're already, for example, with the 710 fuselage, if you were with the 1100, if you had it almost all the way forward and you didn't have room to move the 940 on this fuselage another 35 millimeters forward, you would then increase the angle of attack of the stabilizer. So you increase the angle of attack, angle it down, or a bit of negative, to basically give you more push up, and which will move the front foot pressure, or increase the front foot pressure, move the pressure point back a little bit, so you have the same balance as you would have had on the 710. That's when you'd use the shim. And the other reason, obviously, as I said before, is if you was feeling balanced but you wanted more stability, then you would also shim it down to increase the effectiveness of the stabilizer. Mark's asking, could you review of the 799 as well? I have not ridden it yet. I've only heard and talked to people who have ridden it. So, and their opinions on comparisons. I'm getting mine this weekend when I head to Tarifa. I'm heading to the Spanish wing tour, and Moses are sending me, Sabfoil are sending me the 799 down there. Maybe I'll do like an unboxing and first ride video, maybe when I'm in Tarifa. But I'll do a full review. Let's see, if it's very different to all the other stuff and it's quite obvious after about a week or two of riding it, I'll do a review pretty quickly. But if it's very similar, for example, to the 950 or something, and I need more time, it might take a month before I get a proper review out. But remember, if you have any questions, you can just hit me up on Discord or on Facebook, and I'm happy to tell you what my opinions are as soon as I've ridden it properly. Normally Jimmy does, but sometimes, with production times and so on, and sending stuff to Fuerteventura is a bit of a nightmare. I can understand if he doesn't send me everything. I'm already pretty happy with what Jimmy does for me. That said, as this being YouTube, I have to say, Sabfoil don't pay me for these reviews, and they may send the wings down, and as a return, I give them my feedback and opinions, and I do the reviews, but I don't get paid by Jimmy to do it. If there's something wrong with them, I typically do say, and for example, I hated the 873, and that's why there was no review of that. Yep, that's it. I'm going to take this time to talk a bit about the new mast and the 92. I wouldn't really call it a completely new mast. It's essentially an evolution of the 82 surf mast. The 92 is great. It's great to wing with a longer mast. The reason to have like the 92 is when you're going for a jump, for example, it gives you way more pop than an 82 does. That 10 centimeters extra, it's just like having a little bit more of a ramp. That's why I like it. When you're surfing, it gives you more lean to it. Like the 82, it's a fairly thick profile on the 92, and it's obvious. It's a lot stiffer. Like, it gives you a great sort of feeling for your foil. However, it is more weight. So if you compare it to the 91, it's about 30% heavier than the 91, but it's a lot stiffer. No one will use the 91 for winging with any of the bigger wings. It's just way too flexible, and the 92 is very stiff. It works very, very well. I've not had any ventilation issues with it whatsoever, and I've not broken it yet. I've been training very hard in the freestyle, and with the jumping with the wings, you land extremely hard most of the time, and I actually have managed to split in 82. And the 92 so far has survived pretty well. They've changed the plate a little bit. The plate construction is it's more like a diamond shape to it, so it's a bit more streamlined, and also they've reinforced the areas. It's got different thicknesses throughout where it could possibly be stressed the most, so it's actually got a better plate system now, a better and stronger plate system. Okay, will there be a review of the 800? Yep, sorry, I will be doing that soon. I'm just trying to somehow get footage with it. We just haven't had the wind for that quite yet. The last time it was super windy, I was using other foils because I felt it more important to get the footage for the 940 and for some of the other foils I was using. But it's summer, so sooner or later it'll be windy enough to get the 800 done. But essentially, I can give you a preview or a spoiler. The W800 is basically a small 1000. It has the same characteristics like the 1000. It's super fast, really fast. It actually gets going quite early for its size. It takes a skilled rider to really get the most out of it. It's really fun in big waves, really turny. It is an amazing tow-in foil. It's amazing. Like, you tow into a huge roller, it's so fast and so controlled. That's the thing about it being a race wing, essentially, for windsurfing, is at that 30 knot, over 30 knot speed, when you're on a big wave, you don't ever feel out of control. Whereas, for example, you take small kite foil or small surf foil, they don't have that top end range and control, and they just overpower you quickly, and you have to slow down, and that's not exactly what you want when you're towing in on a proper tow in wave. So the 800 actually is really good for that. And the 800 is amazing for kiting. It pretty much replaces all the big kite foil wings. It just has the low end of the 695 and the 633, and it's just got a top end speed very close to the race foil, to the 673 or the 670. So it's pretty much, for me, it's sort of for the Moses kite foils, it is the one. I use that when I'm kite foiling and jumping and so on, and even just free riding, I use the 800 for that. What's the next question? Yes, loose ride Corrado. Yes, if you shim the stab to give you more stability or more front foot pressure, it will slow you down quite significantly. Neil Arts is asking, how vulnerable are the wings and mast, especially the trailing edge, when you bottom out, for example? Not very. On that session that's in the review video, you might notice that the exit is pretty tricky. It was a lot of shore break, and anybody who knows that spot, there's no beach. It's all rocks. It's round, horrible, hard rocks. So you can see here, I dinged this quite a bit on that session. So you can... Where is it? You can see a bunch of scratches. You can actually see a large gash I've taken out of the fuselage here, and across basically there you've got the few scratches, and the wingtips have taken a bit of a beating. I'm not sure if this comes across on the YouTube because it's probably a bit compressed, but this thing, the back wing, I smacked it backwards really hard into the rocks. I mean, you can see that small little, look like teeth marks here. It went backwards into a rock. There, with the waves we had, it sucked out the water very, very quickly. The current was going at about 5-6 knots. So I pulled the foil backwards and basically bounced it across the rocks before I could pull it up. And I've had a few actual rock contacts with the front wing. So you can see, it's all reversed here. See, this is just a scratch. That's not very deep. There's a bit of a deeper scratch up here. Small scratches there, and I've smacked it into. Got to get used to this mirror image thing here. On the trailing edge here, there's a small ding. That was a pretty full speed impact. Small ding here, small ding here. And I'm actually still riding it like this. There's no cracks or any damage to it. Yeah, so it can take a beating. Khalid Adiba, Dragon Ball Z. Broly's Morocco. Yeah. Wind, salt water, and wind hair. But I think tonight we're gonna take it all off. I'm going for a bit of a different look. I'm getting a bit older, so hairline's gone back. So probably next video you'll be different. I have to change that logo. Hi Paulo. I might have mentioned this earlier on. Review comparison 1000 to 940. Yeah, I did mention that. Just to recap, the 1000 and 940 are very similar in their power range they need to get flying. Just that the 1000 has a lot more high-end range. The 940 is a little bit more sort of slower, easy going. So if you're looking for something that's a bit more relaxed to ride in bigger waves, more of a carvy, easy thing, that's okay. But if you're really wanting aggressive top to bottom, constantly breaching and so on, then the 1000 is for you. Also for downwind, if you're wanting something fast, the 1000 is more of a performance wing compared to the 940. Bernard says, when I got my 1000, the trailing edge was sharp like a knife. Can you soften it? How much? You won't lose a lot of top speed by softening it. You can soften it like here. I mean, the trailing edge on the 940, as you can see here, is probably can't see it. It's very round. Yeah, I can't. Don't know if you're hearing this, but I'm rubbing my hand across it quite hard. If I did that with 1000 when it was new out of the box, I'd be going to the hospital right now. Yeah, so you can easily sand that down. Just basically get 300 grit sandpaper, soft sponge, and 3 or 4 times over, and it will round it off, and it will be a lot safer. It won't be as dull as here, because if you sanded it as dull as the 940 is now, you're gonna probably have to take off 5 millimeters or even a centimeter off the wing, because it's a lot thinner profile. So you can take off a little bit, but you can't make it, let's say, as safe as this wing here. All right, can I talk about sanding the wings and mast? Sure. I'm just gonna put this to the side this second. So actually, I'm gonna need this to demonstrate. Actually, I'm just gonna. Okay. So any sort of profile thing, if you're gonna sand the mast, what you're trying to do, it depends what you're trying to achieve. So most of the time when people are sanding the trailing edge of their mast, they're trying to get rid of noise. So if you're wanting to get rid of noise, normally it's because the trailing edge is too round or it's got imperfections in it. So what you're gonna do is, okay, imagine this is a piece of sandpaper, like 300 grit. You get a hard block. Actually, I'm not gonna use the sponge because people are gonna think that that's the way to do it. You get a hard block, you wrap sandpaper around that, and then you could try to get it about 30 degrees. This would be the top of the wing, top profile, the extra DOS. And then you're going to go down the trailing edge and basically sand down so you get a 30-degree angle in there. And then once you've got it more or less in there, you're going to take that sandpaper and you're going to go once or twice just straight along the trailing edge just to clean it. Because when you sanded it this way, you've added small little micro imperfections there. You're just going to clean it up like that, and that will be a lot less noisy. Now, if you're going to do that on the mast, you're going to do that on both sides. You're going to go 30 degrees one side, and you're going to go 30 degrees the other side. Try to sand it evenly. So if you go 1, 2, 3 on one side, flip it over, do it 3 times on the other side, or you're going to start getting lopsided. And I'm really serious about using a hard block. Don't do it with your hand. Don't do it with a sponge, because then you're going to get really a horribly uneven trailing edge. So once you got it sharpened, then you'd go across. Now on the other hand, if you wanted to soften the trailing edge, the best way of actually getting it really round is to not use a sponge or block at all. You'd basically want to, if it's your mast, you're going to try to lock it in. It's hard to demonstrate, but you're going to take the sandpaper in both hands like so, and you're going to run it down like this under tension. Okay? That will give you a nice round trailing edge. Now remember, when you do this, your foil is going to start singing. So that is your drawback. Sure, you're going to have a safer foil when the trailing edge is dull, but a dull trailing edge will make noise. It'll find one speed where it will react with the frequency, and especially a bit more hollow masts will make even more noise. The good thing about the Moses now with the wood core, there's not enough resonant body to make that noise very loud. Like the 940 is not a very loud singing foil with that very dull trailing edge. The 1000 makes a lot more noise when it's not sanded properly. Okay. Mark is asking, can you sand the tips of the 400 stab round? Yes, you can. You'll notice no difference in performance. Just don't go overboard. Just round them off so you have like a 5mm radius, and that's fine. You still want a fairly sharp trailing edge so it doesn't make any noise. But if you're okay with it buzzing a little bit, yeah, just go for it. surface sanding pros and cons. So surface sanding on surf foils or wing foils at the moment, I think is a waste of time. All right, unless you have a specific problem with ventilation. So ventilation I'm talking about is when the mast or the front wing are pulling air down to the main body of the foil or down the mast to the fuselage. The new mast, the 82, the 92, they don't really have major ventilation problems at the speeds you're going wing foiling at the moment. I mean, later on, maybe when we start going racing speeds and you're really pushing it, higher angles and our efficiency of the wings, the ones we have on our hands, gets better. Sure, then we start getting into having to sand the foils down a bit. Now, sanding your front wing can have an advantage if you breach. It will stop the air from propagating down the foil and cause an air bubble. That will cause an air bubble around your foil and cause you to crash. That, however, said, the 940 and the 1000, they don't propagate the air down to the foil anyway. And a really perfect sanding job, and I really mean perfect, will give you a small little improvement of how fast the water or the flow reattaches to the wing. It won't stop you from crashing if you overdo it. It won't make you any faster. It will just give you a slight faster re-engagement of your foil. So for now, for winging and for surf foiling, sanding, like getting that perfect race finish like we do on the race foils, it's not that necessary. That said, obviously, a perfectly sanded foil is always going to work better than a glossy or scratched or a glossy foil or something that's scratched up and full of dings. You should always, if you have scratches on your foil, if you're running the maximum speed and performance, you want to filler those scratches in so you have a nice smooth surface for the water to attach to. But I repair my wings once a month. With surf foiling and wing foiling, I don't care about the performance all too much. There isn't enough difference. I might lose a knot, but on wave riding or on freestyle winging, it doesn't matter. Okay. Any more questions on the 940? What should you use? Should you use for cleaning? Actin ethanol, isopropanol. I mean, alcohol is, although the petrol-based cleaners, and like anything like acetone, is pretty aggressive for the carbon finish. So I wouldn't really recommend using any of that. I would tend to go more for like cheap window cleaner. Yeah, that sort of works a lot better. Or, I mean, for surf foiling, just dishwashing liquid that gets rid of any fatty fingerprints off your masts. Now, again, for surf foiling and wing foiling, we're not going any speeds where we have any major ventilation issues that will be caused by fingerprints or dirt on the mast. If your mast is ventilating at super slow speeds, there is another issue. Either something's wrong with the profile, or the mast is too flexible. And so basically, to answer the question more directly, no, don't use aggressive cleaners on the mast. Mike Miller, how does the 940 compare to the other non-down wave riding, just regular chop? I am not sure if I understand the question, Mike. So basically just normal choppy water, or you mean surfing the chop? I mean, on flat water, I mean, the 940 is fun because it's a nice jumper. It's got good acceleration for jumping. It's not quite as good as the 1000 for jumping, in my opinion. The 1000 just accelerates like crazy, so you can get like a lot of pop. But the 940 is definitely quicker than the 950 and the 1100 and the 790 definitely. So for in flat water, just speeding along, going for jumps, carving, and so on. That's yeah, it's pretty good for that. But then again, so is the 1000. Now, if we're talking about learning maneuvers and tacks, jibes, small jumps, and so on, the 940, after you land, is obviously going to take more power and more pumping to get back up on the fly compared to the 1000 or the 950. The 950 is actually pretty cool on jumping. If you land well enough, you'll actually land foiling and you can continue. Or if you land slightly off the foil and you touch down, it's very easy to get going because it's bigger, and it's basically it has a lower stall speed, so it's very easy to get it up onto the foil again. Whereas the 940, you need to land a bit better if you're going to foil continuously on. The other side, however, on jumping is I prefer to use the smallest foil as possible for jumping, mainly because you are less likely to break something, including yourself, if you have a smaller foil that when it hits the water, it just sinks down quickly. There's less area resisting your landing. So the 1000 I like a lot, and the 800 I like a lot, because when you land it, it just basically, as if you have no foil, it just goes through the water, board touches down, and off you go. The 940 is almost as good, but having a bit more sort of cord to it and a bit thicker profile, it lands a little bit harder. And the 950 and the 1100, those land hard. You land, the board almost stops as it hits the surface of the water. So if you land off center, slightly crooked, or completely flat, you are more likely to break something or to get twisted around and flipped over and things like that. Barrett is asking, can I compare the 1250 and the 1100? Yes, I can. Long story. I mean, I've been riding the 1250 for a very long time. I've had that for since I started winging almost, or winging again. I think I got that beginning of last year. But as it didn't come out, I didn't talk about it. So compared to the 1100, it gives you another 2 knots of low end compared to the 1100. However, it takes quite a lot away from the top end. It's quite a bit slower than the 1100. If you are looking for the lightest wind possible, it's very easy to make it go in 6-7 knots, and it just chugs along. You, however, need a wing that has a bit of grunt to it. So if you have sort of thinner profiled or flat profiled wings, like duotone, Slake, duotone Echo, the Elevate wing, I'm trying to think, the Tacoons, all the ones that are very flat and thin profiles, which are actually pretty fast. The problem is they're not so grunty, and they need a bit more speed to create. They work very well with high aspect wings to create that apparent wind to make them work very well. When you're on the 1250, you don't create a lot of apparent wind. It just gets up, and you could almost stand, and you will just ride, and you ride slowly. And if it's really light wind, like a 6 meter sort of thin tubed flat profile wing, just doesn't create any power, and you have to work a lot more, and you're doing more pumping than you're actually doing any sailing. So if you're going to use the 1250, I recommend you use something with a thick profile. Ozone, North, the duotone unit. I'm not going to talk about that brand because I get sued again. Anything with sort of a thick profile will do very well with 1250. Matteo, I have a big problem with hardware on the fuselage that I have to tighten every hour. This is up into you also. I'm assuming you're talking about the Mast fuselage screws. Yes, that can happen. The main reason that happens is the Moses connection system. It's conical, and it doesn't bottom out. So what you really need to do is really crank it down. Wait 5-10 minutes, especially when the foil is new, and then crank it again. The tool that Moses delivers with the thing is it's a bit hard to get like a really good tightening on it. I use a normal Allen key that's about yay long. It's about 25 centimeters, and I really crank it down. And then once it settles really, because after 10 minutes you can actually all of a sudden feel, oh, it's loose again. You can crank it down a bit more, and then it settles down, and then I don't have that issue. And I've had a few customers which have actually had the same thing, and I've been telling them, no, crank it tight and wait and crank it tight again. And then when I've actually demonstrated how I do it, they're like, oh my God, you crank it that tight? And I'm like, yes, you can actually really go pretty hardcore on those screws. So trust yourself, crank it a bit harder. Like, don't take like a massive torque key. Just use a normal small Allen, and you'll get it. Use good tools. Like, if you use a cheap Allen key, you can actually strip the Allen key and then you're stuck there without getting it tight at all. Neil's asking, Sabfoil says the 633 is the funniest foil. Can you explain? Funniest in Italians, I know a lot of Italians, they always, instead of fun, write funniest. And it's fun. It is. I mean, when I first got the 633 back in, 2017, I think, or 2016, 2017, yeah, I immediately saw the huge potential in it. It was super fun. It was actually the first fun big foil that we could use for kiting that still had some reasonable speed to it. So if you're just wanting to go out there and small jumps, freestyle, really learning, also just experimenting with maneuvers, it's a great foil for that because it's very forgiving. It can go slow, it can go reasonably fast, it can land foiling if you're on the kite, so it's great. For winging, not so much. For winging, it's a bit too small. I mean, if you're a light person, fine, let's use it, but there are better wings now than the 633. Actually, the 940 sort of goes into that territory. You can use the 940 as a kite foil wing too, and it's just as fun, just with the ability to breach. So, Mike Miller's asking, the Mast fuselage bolts. I've also noticed that when I end the session and remove the fuselage, it seems like the bolts were loose, but tighten before riding for sure. So I've started to crank before session. Yeah, so remember, crank it, go put on your wetsuit, crank it again. Yeah, and if it's a brand new foil, crank it, go sailing 10 minutes, come back, crank it again. The mast settles into the fuselage. It's not like a bottomed out connection where it's just aluminum to the bottom of the mast. There's a gap there, and as it's conical and it's now the material carbon is soft, so it can still pull into the fuselage a little bit. So crank it harder, like just before you go out, really crank it down. That should work. And also, I'm assuming all you guys are using the small washers that are on the fuselage screws, because if you don't do those, yeah, it'll definitely open up. Trying to think of anything else. Oh yeah. Also, another reason for the mast sort of settling a bit more is that when if the connection, the actual plug is slightly dirty, or the fuselage is dirty. Actually, here's a good example. I haven't cleaned it out since the last session I've been out. If you look at it, I've got a bit of dirt in here, like some salt and so on. So if it's dirty and you've got like a small layer of salt on there or any other dirt, and you just put the mast in and you tighten it down, eventually that salt is going to compress or break up, or the water is going to wash it out, and then it's also going to settle in a bit more, which again will make the screws loose. Okay. How long have we been going? Oh, we're almost an hour in. Cool. Any other questions? I definitely wouldn't recommend the 873 for anything. It's slow. It doesn't really have a lot of lift, and it doesn't accelerate. So for dock starting, it's really difficult to make it work because it wants to stop. And just to be honest, Moses doesn't have a great dock starting pumping foil yet. I've got a lot of hopes for the 945, but on the market there are quite a lot of other dedicated pumping foils that work better. So if you're really wanting to get into dock starting, wait for the 945 or wait till I review it and tell you what it's like, or go for something that makes pump foiling easier. There are a lot of great foils out there specific for that, like the Indiana 1100P. Specific, it's only been designed for pumping, and it's probably the easiest one for pump foiling ever. If you're getting into it, the Axis, the 1300, just goes. It's super high aspect. It has really low stall speed. It's really easy to pump. The large Go foils, yeah. So you have options there. You don't necessarily have to go for Moses. The 1250 pumps, it's pretty good. However, it doesn't quite live up to the other pump foils on the market. I think Moses will bring out more pump dedicated stuff eventually. 940 on Kite, using the old Kite Mast 91, would it bend the mast? Yes, it will. Just like the 633 does. I mean, it will still work for kite foiling because you don't have as much mass in the board. But as soon as I had the 92, I felt no reason to use the 91 ever again, other than for that it's lighter. But I prefer control and stiffness, so 92 is a lot better than the 91. Neil Brady's asking, what wings won't work with the 710 fuselage? Only the Kite ones. All other wings nowadays work with it. Anything that's not a specific kite wing. So, for example, the 800, the 1000, 695, 550. Did I say 695 already? 590. All those small kite wings, which have a completely different hole spacing and are designed for small fuselage, those won't work with the 710. Any of the bigger wings will work with the 710. And I'm not sure if you maybe meant the 700. And the same thing goes. The 700 will work with any of the surf wings, given that you have drilled open the holes if you still have the older versions with the M6 holes hardware. The Sabfoil site has info about data sheets and compatibility. Yes, they do. Yeah. Have you ridden the 679 with the 370 stab on the 92? Can you tell us anything about it? Yeah, it's okay. I'm not the biggest fan of the 679. I know a lot of people love it. I just never really got on with it so well. I mean, it's fast, and the 370 makes it even looser and more carvy. So that's if you already like the 679 and you add the 370 to it, you're going to get even more sort of yawy, loosey feeling to it. So it'll be faster, more agile on the waves. So it'll definitely give you a more fun ride than it does, for example, with the 483. And it's definitely better than using any of the Kite stabilizers on that wing. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions that I haven't covered that were asked for on the Facebook. Hi, Balls. Nice to see you in the chat, man. Welcome. Yeah, man, I am so stoked to get it for Tarifa. I'll probably be ending up using it in the comp. I hope you did a good job because I don't want to lose. Cool. Thanks for joining the chat, man. Would you recommend to drill the W1100 or use the adapters? Well, Bernhard, I'm not quite sure what you're asking actually. And use the adapters. If you drill your 1100, you can put it on the HS700 fuselage, and you don't have to use any adapters. You just put it on. And then if you then took your 1100, you would need the adapters if you wanted to put it back on your 710 fuselage, which in theory you wouldn't want to do, but you can if you want. Yeah, so you can drill it and then you can use it on both fuselages. That's the answer to that. If you use the 1100 on the new fuselage, you will actually get it a bit more agile and turny. It'll be less sort of front foot pressury. So it'll actually, in some people's minds, will improve the 1100. It'll give it a bit more top end and a bit more agility and fun. Okay, Francois is asking, I used a 633 and sold my foil for the 92,100 and also a new Kite front wing. My shop proposed 799. I don't know. I haven't ridden the 799 yet, so I can't tell you. I'm sorry. I would assume that it's a bit big for kiting. But again, I don't know. Thanks, Balls. The 92W1100 is for wings for surf. Yes, in small waves. So yeah, if for the W1000 is great in small waves, anything up to about shoulder height, anything bigger it's a bit big for that. You want a smaller foil. Biniasch, I think of stability. Is it necessary to drill? Do you mean stability of the wing connected to the fuselage? If so, yes, it's a much stronger connection. But that said, actually the way the connection works on the Moses is if the screws are tight, there's almost no wobble. Even with the M6 screws, you're not going to get an issue. But wait, I think. Oh, they have the new FS700. You mean the HS700? I'm a bit confused now of what you mean. I mean, if you have the HS700, if you want to use your 1100, you're gonna have to drill open the holes, or else you won't be able to put it on the 700. Or you mean you have the FS710, where you have M6 hardware? So if you have the HS700, you need to use M8 hardware, so you need to drill the holes open, and it will be a more solid connection. So when you're jumping, you will have less chance of twerking the screws on the bigger wings like the 1100 or the 1250. Those have a chance to bend. No, I'm sorry, Bernard. You misunderstood me there. The M6 adapters are for using the new wings. Almost all the new wings that get delivered now. The 940, the 950, also probably the new 1100s that are being produced now are going to be delivered with M8 holes for M8 hardware. And that's why they also deliver with those wings those small adapters, so you can put those on a 710 fuselage, an M6 fuselage, with the M6 screws. If you, however, have the 700, you just use the M8 hardware if you have any new wings. Mike, what would be the light wind front wing for kite foiling? Perhaps similar in behavior as the 1100 for winging. Shows the 70 as the biggest for kiting. Well, as I said before, for me, that's the 800. Hands down. The W940 is the most awesome big kite foil wing. Yeah, it's fast. It can still go slow for kite speeds. It's really stable for kiting. Yeah, for me, it does it all for me. The 633 would be more, like say, beginner intermediate. It's because it doesn't have that speed. The 800 is more for an advanced rider. So, because once it gets up, it doesn't need a lot of kite speed or kite wind to get up. Once it's up, it accelerates. It's a race foil, so it'll go. It's super fun. If you're a beginner, that can be pretty scary. So if you're still in the beginner intermediate stage, then the 633 is a better choice for that level of rider, whereas anybody above the intermediate stage will love the 800. Okay. So, any more questions? Because we're already an hour in. Usually a good time to end the stream if we're anything like that. So I want to talk about a little bit what reviews are coming in the future, what are planned. Okay, Mike's sort of asking it. Sorry. I am a beginner with a 633. Just to clarify this again, with 800 I will get my 91 Mast bent more than with the 633. No, actually less. The 800 has a lot less torque to it than the 633 does. Also, because you're on a thin, less long fuselage, there's a lot less pressure yaw-wise on your mast. So, yeah. When I'm talking about the torquing, I'm really talking about the Sabfoil wings, sort of like the 633 and up anything on the 710 fuselage. Luzca Conrado Romano. So you cannot use old wings on the new fuselage? Yes, you can, but if then you need to drill the holes open a bit. You get an 8mm. Better would be like 8.5 or 9mm drill. You drill out the hole, and then you need to get a routing tool to basically open up the countersink a bit more so it fits in M8. It's not a big job, but if you have a shaper who has all those tools, bring it to them, because basically it takes, if you have the right tools, it takes a minute. It's like zzz, 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 and then you've basically got that. You can seal it a bit with super glue, but then M8 screws fit perfectly fine. I've done that to a few of my wings. I've done that to my 1250, because the 1250 I actually got a year and a half ago definitely was made for the M6 hardware, and that works fine. So again, what's happening next on the channel? Obviously, I'm going to continue with more live streams like we're doing now, more sort of in the question and answer format, and I'll also be doing a bit more of a news thing. It's essentially what's happening in the world of foiling, covering any news, any competitions. I'm actually in 2 weeks. I'm heading to the World Cup in Gizzeria in Italy. I'm going to be commentating there for that. So I might be doing a live stream in the evenings from there, next to the live, just basically recapping what's happened during the day. And once I'm back, I will be then doing an actual, hopefully, an opening of the 799, like an unboxing, first impression video of the 799. So stay tuned for that. And I'm also, this is where I sort of need your opinion a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the North foils too. I'm also riding those quite a bit. So I don't know if people are interested in that. So I'm be talking about that, and I'm also going to be then doing a bunch of live reviews of the the Tikkun wings, the new North wings. The new North wings is going to be more of a tech talk and less of a review, for obvious reasons. The new Ozones, and we'll see if I do duotones or not. Yeah, and stuff like that. Francois, W800 also for surf for intermediate kite foiler. Yeah, you can surf with it if you can handle the speed. You can. It's really fun in surf. Another reason why I really like it. Lewis, welcome to the chat. What would be the best step down foil from wing foil from 1,100 90 kilograms to use in rolling swell? Well, it depends how much of a step down you want. The 950 is a really nice step down, in my opinion, from the 1,100. It's got quite a lot of top end that it adds compared to the 1,100, and it doesn't need so much more wind to get going, so you're not losing too much. For example, if you switch down from the 1,100 to the 790, which essentially has less top end than the 950, and more or less the same low end than the 950, actually a little bit less, and less pumpability. And the 950 beats it hands down. I actually assumed when the 950 came out that the 790 would be retired. So yeah, going down from the 1,100 to 95 is a nice step. Okay. So as I was saying, yeah, I'm going to be doing some wing reviews once I'm back from Italy, and then hopefully do a full review of the 799. And then, for example, how do you guys feel about if I would start doing reviews from essentially my sponsor, who's North? I mean, I was planning on doing essentially just tech talks on the equipment, so basically not really a full review, just talking about the foils. I mean, essentially what I'm doing here, just the differences. I mean, I have no real affiliation with Sabfoil other than, you know, a decent friendship. So if you think, yeah, no, Gunnar, don't talk about the Norse stuff. I mean, you're sort of essentially a rider for them. Yeah, I'm allowed to talk about anything I want, really, on North side. So yeah, it's just what do you guys think? Wing foil speed. What would you recommend front wing? 800. The 800 is the one you want if you want to go fast on a wing foil. I've not tried anything that's any faster. Kiting W800 stabilizer size. I love the 399. The 399 works really good for me for kiting. Works really well. You can also use the 421. It gets a bit too, let's call it directionally or racy for me with the 421. I like the little bit more looseness that the 400 gives me. That's true. You're on. But I've also, in my opinion, a lot of the stream watchers are quite open to things. So, I mean, your opinions always matter to me. Yeah, I'm always critical about everything. So, yeah. Is there anything else you would want me to talk about of any of the other Moses products which I haven't covered yet? I know people really want me to do the 679 a bit more. I mean, the 800, that review is coming. I'm working on it. Is there anything else? Do you guys want to know anything about the wind foils? Do you want to... well, I mean, yeah, the 1250, obviously, I think you guys want to know about. So, should I do a 1250 review? A full one, or is a tech talk enough for you guys on the 1250? I mean, do you guys actually need a full review of the 92 centimeter mast? That, I mean, for me, it's just a mast. It's not really a lot to talk about, because it's not a very huge difference between the 82 in a sense of performance and construction. So yeah, let me know if if you really want a review of the new mast. So yeah, so those are my plans for the next 4 or 5 weeks. So yeah, so if there aren't any more questions, I mean, let's end the stream here. Thanks so much for watching, and for all your questions. I hope I answered everybody's questions satisfactorily. So yeah, I will. Yeah, Antoine. Yes, I've tested the 671 with the 399. Yeah, it works really good. It's a nice race setup. I mean, I'm retired from racing now, but it's a super fun ride, and it's fast. It's actually a bit more easy in tacks and maneuvers because I can turn it tighter than with the 421. So it's definitely a good combo. There's not a massive difference between the 399 and the 400, if that's your question. When you're riding the 671, the 399 is just like, it's a slightly little bit more thick, and I mean that could be just down to the one I got being, you know, slightly thicker, and it's a bit heavier than the 400, which is, it's just a different carbon that's used in the making. So there isn't a massive difference between those. All right, so I'm gonna say goodnight for now. It's getting pretty late here, and I got a long day tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, if you want to support the channel and any of the videos I do, click on the link in the description below here and join up on Streamlab, and you can get some merch or give any tips or whatever you want. And obviously there is my Buy Me Coffee page that is always open. You can go on there and buy me some coffee if you like. Otherwise, just keep watching, keep sharing, and yeah, keep up the stoke and enjoy foiling. Thanks for watching, and rock on. I'll see you guys on the water.